Hey guys, hopefully everybody made it on. We had a little bit of a snafu there getting things started, but I'm happy for those of you that are joining us tonight. What we're going to go through today is superfoods. I have 7 written out, and we'll see as much or how much we can get through and kind of go from there. So first of all, welcome. I'm glad you guys are taking the time to learn a little bit more about your health and things that we can do to increase that. So first off, our intention today is for me, of course, to teach you about superfoods, but for you to be able to leave this talk with a little bit of knowledge and something that you can share with other people and as well as with yourself that you can implement into your life. So one thing that I want you to think about is more food as medicine, and especially these superfoods. How do they affect our body? And how can we use these to prevent things from happening? So not the traditional way that we think of medicine being something is wrong with me, so I'm going to take something to try to counteract the symptoms I've now developed. The superfoods that we're going to talk about have an ability to kind of preload our immune system so that we don't get in the scenario that we need to take something to get rid of the problems that we've developed. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is coconuts. I want to start with something really easy. Everybody knows it. Everybody's eaten it before, to give you more of an understanding of how helpful that can be. And then we'll get into some of these other superfoods that maybe you haven't heard of before, and I can explain why these are good for you and why they're beneficial. So the first thing with coconuts is, number one, it has everything that you need to live. So if you're stuck on a desert island, you could live on just having coconuts and be totally fine. So the first part we'll talk about is that coconut water. And first of all, that's natural water. It takes it's a long process for that to kind of filter through all the coconut and get into something that we can actually consume. But it has the highest source of electrolytes out of everything that we can get. So that compared to Gatorade, that's a way better because you're not having these artificial things being added in, okay? So that's far superior. It has like I said, the highest electrolytes out of anything, and definitely the highest in nature, but it's even better than a lot of the sport drinks that you can get because you have nothing artificial added, okay? It's also nearly identical to human blood plasma. And actually in World War II, they used this coconut water for blood transfusions. I didn't know that until doing some of the research, but that's pretty interesting. It's that identical that we're able to actually use it for a blood transfusion. So it's really, coconut water is the universal donor. We'll talk next more about like the meat of the coconut, and that's what most people are pretty familiar with, but the benefits are really incredible. First off, it speeds up our metabolism as well as decreasing, or I should say increasing the ability to lose some fat. I can kind of summarize this pretty easy with, there was these farmers in the 1940s, they were looking for a way to get their cattle heavy so that, of course, they could butcher them sooner, but they thought they found the answer by feeding them coconut because it's so high with a saturated fat. They thought if they're giving them all this saturated fat, the cows will bulk up and they'll be able to butcher much sooner. However, what they found is all of a sudden the cattle were getting really lean and muscular and actually losing fat. So the coconut was helping them build muscle. And this is what it does for us as well. It increases that metabolism and it increases the ability to put on and build muscle. It's also antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. So that's pretty big benefits there. The big one with coconut, for me personally, as far as working with people trying to increase their health, coconut increases your thyroid function. So when your thyroid function is increased, what that's actually able to do is increase the amount of good cholesterol you have, those HDLs, decrease your LDLs, but not only does it decrease that bad fat in your body, it can take that bad fat and actually convert it into steroids within your body that are very good for you, which is DHEA and pregnenolone. And both of those, they help fight cancer, they help fight heart disease. The pregnenolone, if you're blessed with some dark eyes under your dark circles under your eyes, like I've had my whole life, using that coconut can actually stimulate some of these muscles in the face, so it'll tighten that up. So that's a pretty cool benefit. So from a cosmetic standpoint, there are definitely big benefits, but on the other end, fighting cancer, fighting heart disease, that's incredible. Why wouldn't you do that? It's so easy to add into your diet. Just doing simply like a scoop of coconut oil. That's what I usually do in the morning. Just take a spoonful, put it in my mouth. I'll actually like swish it around a little bit and swallow. You can do that more for like oil pulling, where you'd swish that around maybe 10 minutes and spit it out. Because of those antimicrobial, antifungal properties, when you're getting this in the teeth, it'll really clean that out. If you're just, like I said, I'm mostly eating it. So just that one scoop, swish around once or twice, I swallow it. I'm not worried about spitting out all of those things. But that's an easy way to have that as an intake. I don't like to add it to a shake, but just doing the spoonful is a really easy way to do it. It's kind of the last thing, or I guess one more part as far as the thyroid function. When you have that pregnenolone, it's really good for your nervous system function. So for anybody that has any type of like neurogenic disorder, so Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, it's really good for like anti-aging. A lot of the things that we see deter as people age, this is helpful to maintain some of those benefits and also make you a little bit better. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is chlorella. So there's two superfoods that we're going to talk about that are kind of in the same category, chlorella and spirulina. They're both algae. So these are single cell organisms. The only thing that they eat, or the only nutrition that they get, is from the sun. So the reason I think these are so cool and it's so important is that means that the only food it's eating is the sun. So, or the only thing it's getting energy from is the sun. So there is nothing else in the food chain above it. So when we're talking about the ocean, so chlorella is from the ocean, spirulina is freshwater. But for the chlorella, especially if we think about that food chain, how many things does a shark eat? There's a lot of things underneath that. So you have to worry about every single thing that all of that other food ate when it comes to toxicity. Just like we're really concerned about where we get our meats from, and you want to know how that cow was raised, right? Were they fed grass-fed, or are they being fed something else to fatten them up? So that's really cool with these algae, that the only thing that they're getting their energy from is the sun. So they use photosynthesis to produce a lot of the other things that we take in our body. But the algae itself, chlorella, has an incredible ability to detoxify your liver. And this is probably the one I've educated the most of my friends on. Is there was a study done, if you consume about 3 to 6 grams of chlorella before drinking, there's a 96% chance that you'll have no hangover. I'll be the first to admit, I've tested this before and it works every time. I've never rolled the dice and hit that 6% chance that it didn't work, 4. You have 96% that it will. So that kind of speaks to its ability to detoxify. And especially when, as you're not preloading it, you're just taking it the same day. But chlorella has a lot of other amazing benefits. Excuse me for a second. So it's good for your brain. It's good for your liver. It's good to protect you from radiation. It's good for detoxification, like I just said, as far as clearing out the liver. It has a great ability to remove heavy metals and toxins from our body. The other thing that's really unique to chlorella is it quadruples itself every 24 hours. That makes it the fastest growing food in the world. But that what they call chlorella-like growth factor, it also affects us. So when you ingest that chlorella, and it's in your gut biome, it will actually increase how fast some of those good bacteria proliferate. So it's really good for our gut health. That's a term that's thrown around a lot right now, gut health. That's very, very important. And what they're seeing in some research is your gut health leads to some of these diseases that they thought were all more cognitive and mentally or caused from the brain, such as Parkinson's. They're seeing ties now of bad gut health actually riding your vagus nerve up and creating some of these infections and the problems that people have. So chlorella is great for detoxifying. It also increases our healing rates. And they've actually seen with people going through chemotherapy, when they added chlorella, they were recovering from their treatments much, much faster. They also see people with chronic disease start to recover and feel a lot better from adding this. What I would recommend, as far as if this is something you want to add in and take, if you're trying to prevent a hangover, you go a little heavier. Typically it comes in tablets, and you're taking about 12 as a serving size. That's like your therapeutic dose. You can do about 3 grams daily. If you want to actually use this and detoxify your liver, you can do that with just this one food. And that's all you have to do is take a little higher dose. You go about 3 to 6 grams, and you take that for a 3 to 6 month period. But the only thing that you have to do is eat the chlorella. So that's pretty easy compared to a lot of other ways that people try to detox by doing these like really crazy juice cleanses. In our office, we do a very thorough cleanse. But if you're just looking to remove some of the heavy metals and really feel some of the benefits after about 3 months, you'll definitely notice a huge increase in energy and not having a lot of these heavy metals that people really aren't aware that they do have or how they're affecting them until they're gone. But this is a way that you can really make an impact. Some of the other things that it helps with is our immune system. So it really bumps up that immune function. A lot of this, they think that comes down to that chlorella type growth factor, because that ability to proliferate really increases and it impacts some of these other cells in our body. So not only does it turn over really fast, but it helps some of the other cells in your body that deal with immune function to turn over much faster as well. So while we're talking about the algae, we'll talk a little bit about spirulina. So that's the other one that is an algae. Like I said, spirulina is a freshwater, where a chlorella is a saltwater algae. The principles that are unique to spirulina is its protein content. It's about 65 to 71% protein, which is very high. It's much higher per weight than what we get with a lot of our animal fat or animal proteins. The other thing that they're discovering is over almost 50% of the protein is actually lost when we cook our meat. And we have to cook our meat like crazy to make sure we're getting rid of any chemical that could be on it. Even when you're getting your meat from a really good source, of course, we're going to cook it. That's just food safety. But that denatures a lot of the protein. So when you take spirulina, you know that number one, it's a complete protein, meaning it has all the amino acids that you need. And you don't need to add anything else or supplement that to make it a complete protein. And it's also very high density as far as the protein goes. The other thing, just like chlorella, is it's low in the food chain. It's a phytoplankton. It's the number one thing on that food chain. It's just getting energy from the sun, using photosynthesis to live. So when you take that in, you don't have to worry about it having any impurities. Probably, to me, one of the coolest things about spirulina is, I'm probably going to mess up this name, but it's phytocyanin is present in spirulina. And what that does is it stimulates your stem cells within your bone marrow to produce more red and white blood cells. So it really is like building blood. When you take this in, your body's going to be able to stimulate those stem cells. You produce more of your red and white blood cells. So your white blood cells are more fighting infection and foreign bodies in your body, where your red blood cells carry your oxygen. So you're now with more of those. It's like you have more worker bees within your body to carry your oxygen. You're going to be more efficient at spreading and getting your oxygen to your muscle tissues. You're also going to have more white blood cells. So you have more, you're going to have better immune function, but you have more white blood cells fighting any infection or any foreign bodies that enter your body. So really two super powerful benefits. And as people know now, stem cells are incredibly powerful for regenerative medicine. We can do a lot of things with that. So anything that you can do to naturally increase or stimulate your stem cells to produce something particular in your body, that's putting you in control of actually your health, really. So rather than you have, like if you have a really low blood count, maybe your red blood cells are low, this would be a good way to naturally increase that production. The other part when it comes to blood is it has the same iron just as much as red meat. So believe it or not, that little algae having just as much iron as, people look at red meat as being one of the primary sources where you can get it from this little algae. I just think that's pretty incredible. And again, it's a complete protein, just like chlorella. As far as immunity, it's great for anti-cancer, as well as, and that's mostly because it increases so many of the antibodies in your body. One other thing that's unique to it is what's called GLA, which is gamma linoleic acid. That is great for your nervous system, and it's also good for anti-inflammatories, so really decreasing that. The GLA, spirulina has the second highest content of GLA of anything. The number one is breast milk. So the reason I bring this up is if you are going, or if you have a child who doesn't breastfeed, they're not going to get this GLA. And it's super important for someone that's developing because this helps control the development of your nervous system. So if you're not getting that because you didn't breastfeed, you can supplement with spirulina to make sure you still get those effects. Or simply for someone that has any type of neurological disorder, dysfunction, if you're trying to recover from maybe you have like nerve damage, this is something that's definitely going to boost that and make it way easier. You're going to recover a lot faster. These two stack really well together, meaning the chlorella and spirulina. A lot of times when you go to buy it, you'll see that they're combined. So that's a really easy way to get the benefits of both. They sell like 50-50 mixtures. So I want to back up 1 second. I kind of jumped right into this. The original stream that we had wasn't working correctly, so we kind of last minute launched this. And I rushed through the intro here. So before I go into the rest of the superfoods, I want to kind of take a step back and what are superfoods? Well, it's not just a food that's good for you. Superfoods have to have or do have a lot of distinct properties that are unique, about 12 unique properties. So they're all either nutrient or mineral dense, and all of them can act as a food and a medicine. So if you think of traditional medicine, there's a lot of things that's not meant to be consumed. You use it as a medicine in a certain way. Maybe it's only topical. So for instance, we talk about honey that has some topical benefits, but we can also ingest it. So anything that's a superfood, it's medicine, it's medicinal, but it's also a food. So that's one of the qualities. But that doesn't mean anything that's good for you is a superfood. It's a superfood because they have these unique qualities. That was all I wanted to say. So getting back into this, the next one that we'll talk about is honey. And this is pretty interesting because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't consider honey a superfood. They just know that it maybe has some good qualities and they like it. And a lot of people do. So a couple things I want to mention about honey is it really is one of the easier ones to implement because people already like it, but the qualities are pretty vast. And we'll talk about the honey itself as well as the bee pollen. But for the honey, some of the things that are cool is one, it never expires. And it's the only food that insects make that humans consume, which is pretty interesting. But as far as never expiring, they even found honey within the tombs, like in King Tut's tomb, that was still consumable. So that's kind of wild. What I want to mention about honey, though, where it's the most important for this one, and any superfood, I would tell you need to get raw and organic. But especially with honey, if you're not getting something that's raw and organic, honeybees eat their own honey. It's a very small amount, but if this is somewhere and they're doing some unethical practices, they're going to take that honey away from the bees. So instead of letting them feed on their own honey, they give them like high fructose corn syrup. So now that's a really poor, the honey they produce is not going to be what we want. So just make sure you're getting it somewhere, you're getting it from somewhere that's raw and organic. And kind of sidebar, if it came down to it, I would rather have something that's local than organic. For all these superfoods, they have to be raw and organic. But this is more broad scheme. If I was shopping somewhere, I would rather get something that was locally sourced than just organic. Because for instance, that if it has organic on the label, that could be from overseas, or it could be from somewhere that their definition of organic is not what it is in the United States. It's also been sent from who knows where. So there's going to be a lot more things added to try to keep it the way it is, to preserve it. And I don't just mean like literally the food, but it's going to be in packaging. They have to do all these other things to it. And I may expose whatever it is to something that you don't want to be ingesting. So just kind of a sidebar tip, if it came down to it, I'd rather have something local where I know where it's from and it's good quality than strictly being organic. Because I don't know what that means if it's from another country. They don't have the same standards that we have. So as far as honey goes, some of the things that it's really good about or with is, again, it's a complete protein. This is great for GI issues, so it really helps the gut. A lot of people have heard it's great for allergies. Again, if you're using this because you want those benefits for allergies, you want to definitely make sure that it's local to you, because you want to build up that histamine response to the allergens in your area, not allergens in Asia or allergens somewhere else where you are not, because it's not going to benefit you for that reason. Just like all the other benefits of honey, but that's not going to be the same. Honey is we'll talk a little bit more now about like the bee pollen specifically. This one's pretty interesting. So it's great for strength. And I feel like that's not a correlation that people make very often. But in 1972, there was actually a Finnish track team, and they swept the Olympics. They won every event that they were in. And when they talked to the coach after, he accredited their use of bee pollen as the reason they won. And they actually went through some of the training records, and a lot of these guys were seeing strength increases of 40 to 50%, which is huge. There's no supplement sold that can make any promise like that. And this is 100% natural thing that we're taking in. So it's great for strength, endurance, recovery, and speed. The one caution for honey is, for all those benefits that it has, which are all amazing, if you have cancer, you cannot use it, because your cancer cells feed on sugar. And that doesn't matter if it's a really good source like honey or if it's sugar from pixie sticks. It doesn't matter. Those cancer cells will continue to feed on sugar. That's why if you do know anyone in your family that has cancer, switching to like a ketogenic diet is great, because those cancer cells do have a built-in kill switch, which is being starved from sugar. That's a whole different conversation. But if you are going to utilize honey, or if someone in your family is, I know there's so many benefits for a lot of these superfoods, and a lot of them do help fight cancer, heart disease, things like that. But I just want to caution you, if you have cancer, you definitely can't use honey. Okay. So the next one that we're going to talk about is maca root. Maca root is grown in the Andes. It's actually the highest elevation crop in the world. So a little fun fact on that one: the algae chlorella is the fastest growing. Maca root is the highest elevation crop in the world. And that grows in the Peruvian Andes. And the nickname is actually the Andes aphrodisiac. So originally, at like the peak of the Incan Empire, they would chew on this maca root, like a lot of it, because it helps with energy and stamina. So before a battle, they would have this maca root. However, it was banned after battle because it is very strong as far as libido. And they wanted to keep everyone in the back of the village safe. So it's great for energy, endurance, but it's also great for libido. But that's kind of the story as far as when it first came in, or first came to be known. It's also an adaptogen. We'll talk about something else that's an adaptogen as well. But what that means is it increases your body's ability to adapt to stress. So there's something called homeostasis. That's basically when our bodies like are even keel. And how we adapt is how we adjust back to homeostasis. So using anything that's an adaptogen is going to increase your ability to deal with stress, because we can never get rid of stress. There's always going to be stresses throughout life. And I don't mean like financial or things like that, but there's always going to be stresses that turn on our fight or flight response, whether you know it or not, because this is going to happen at different degrees, right? People have heard of someone having a full-on adrenaline rush where they lifted something up or moved it or did some Herculean feat of strength. There's a spectrum of this. You can have that response happening even with something really little. Think about reading a text that annoys you. It's like, in a way, you're triggering that response a little. So the more of this adaptogen, or the more foods that you take in that are adaptogens, the better ability you're going to have to deal with that stress and mitigate it. As far as maca root goes and implementation, I like to just add this one to a shake. I take it in a powder form. Again, making sure it's raw, organic. There's a lot of good companies out there where you can easily get it in the powder. Sun Foods is one that I like, as well as Navitas, and they carry that at Jimbo's, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and most of the superfoods you'll find kind of right in the same place. You don't have to go searching like crazy for them. So the other thing that's great about maca that's kind of unique to that one is that's really good if you have any like menstrual cycle issues. So for women, if they have really bad like menstrual cycles, this can help alleviate a lot of that and really reduce some of those symptoms that you feel. So the next one that we'll talk about is goji berries. Goji berries are also an adaptogen. So they really, again, help your body handle stress and adapt to stress. The thing that's unique about goji berries is they're the only food in the entire world that increases your body's ability to produce HGH, which is human growth hormone. So human growth hormone is really the fountain of youth. That is for your hair, for your nails, for your skin. That's what everybody wants. If you want to look young for the rest of your life, you want to be crushing these goji berries. So what they've actually found, the areas that they're native to have the highest concentrations of centenarians in the whole world. So that means people that live to be over 100. Guess what they primarily eat? Goji berries. So proof is in the berry. That's what they're taking in consistently, and they're seeing these amazing results, whether they're intending to or not. But when they studied this, it's the only natural food, it's the only food that you can eat that will increase your human growth hormone. So what that means for you, if you're trying to put on muscle mass, it increases your ability to build muscle. It increases your ability to lose fat. It increases how your skin looks, the elasticity in your skin, the collagen. When we're aging and going through puberty, your body has a lot higher amount of HGH. That's why we see pretty rapid growth. Aside from that, though, human growth hormone is only released mostly when we sleep. The reason for that is that growth hormone is inversely released to insulin. So if you have really high insulin, you're not going to release human growth hormone. But if that's low, you will increase human growth hormone. That's why most of the time we just release it when we sleep. So if you're familiar with intermittent fasting, you've ever tried that before, that's actually one of the biggest benefits, is that if you're only releasing HGH when you sleep, maybe in that 8-hour window, and most people, as soon as they wake up, they eat something, they break fast, but they typically have a poor quality choice, like something with carbs, bagel, muffin. So not only am I kicking myself out of burning fat and releasing human growth hormone, but I'm taking something in that is going to switch my fuel source. I'm going to switch over to burning glucose again. So with intermittent fasting, if I can stretch out that window, I'm not just stretching the time I didn't eat, but I'm stretching the time that my body produces and releases human growth hormone. So that, to me, is one of the bigger benefits of doing intermittent fasting, is you're increasing your body's ability to build muscle as well as burn fat, and then hair, skin, nails, all those things are going to be better. Goji berry is great for longevity, like we said. It's also great for eye health. It's, as well as chlorella and spirulina, it's a complete protein. So for all of these, if you were to take everything we've talked about so far, you're getting a really good source of protein. You're getting all your amino acids, as well as all these other benefits. Just like I said with everything else, you want to make sure it's raw and organic. So if you're buying the goji berries, I typically buy them and they're dried, and I just add it to a shake, or I don't mind eating a handful. You can put them in a salad. You can add it to foods. If you have a Vitamix, they're going to blend down really easy. You probably won't even notice it. They taste pretty good. But yeah, that's one I would definitely add if you want to increase that human growth hormone, which there's no one that shouldn't. That's for men and women. And this isn't, HGH probably gets a bad rap because what people think of is like steroids in sports and someone taking HGH from an outside source and injecting it into your body. Well, this is completely different. So to kind of jump ship back to what we said about the coconut and talking about things being different, the human growth hormone that's produced when your body does it, that's going to be exactly what your body needs. Your body knows every single variable you have going on, so that's not going to be a negative effect. It's not you adding human growth hormone and all of a sudden your head and your chin being way bigger. We're not stimulating that type of growth. It's going to be released at the exact amounts that you need. It's only going to be a good global benefit. It's the same thing with a coconut. If you look at it, people are always told saturated fat's really bad. Well, that's pretty much all that coconut is. But that saturated fat in nature, in that coconut, is much different than a lot of the saturated fats that we're labeled as bad. Of course, when we fry food, all those things, that's awful. But that saturated fat that we get from the coconut, that's strictly what we call medium chain fatty acids. That medium chain fatty acid does not have to be processed by your liver. It doesn't have to go through your digestive system. That instantly becomes available as energy for your brain. So if you're familiar with like Bulletproof Coffee or any of their products, they make what's called brain octane oil. So what that is it's strictly that carbon-8 chain. So that's the most ketogenic part of that coconut. So they condense that down into an oil. I like to use this one every morning. You can add it into your coffee. You can just add it into water. I just drink it with water as well as a couple other supplements, and I mix it up. But as soon as I have that, the brain functions so much better. I don't have that brain fog because I'm giving my brain energy to use instantly. That doesn't have to be digested or processed. It's available. So just to kind of tie those two things together, just like the HGH that you're naturally increasing with a goji berry, that's way different than getting that from an exogenous source. Just like the coconut, that saturated fat that you get from that is totally fine. It will not make you fat. It will actually make you more muscular and skinnier. So don't be afraid of that. And don't worry about, counting your calories if you're adding coconut in. This is strictly a benefit to you. One second. Okay, so the last one that we're going to talk about is cacao. So cacao is the highest antioxidant of anything else. So more antioxidants than, red wine, pomegranate, and blueberries put together. It's really not even in the same level as a lot of the other stuff. So that's your number one benefit with cacao. And it's also the number one source of magnesium. So that's really important. because magnesium is the most deficient in the US. That's our most deficient mineral. And the reason that's so important is in all of our skeletal muscle and our cardiac muscle, like our heart, we have that calcium and magnesium oppose each other when it comes to things contracting and relaxing. Calcium creates that contraction where magnesium creates a relaxation. So in our diet, we get plenty of calcium. Milk has been pushed forever of like high calcium, a lot of these other foods where we have a lot of calcium, but we don't have that magnesium on the back end. So we're using everything that creates that contraction, but not so much on the relaxation. Like I said, it's the most efficient in the US, and it could be the whole world, but this isn't a way that you can get that benefit. And remember, in cacao, there's one ingredient. It's like, that is chocolate, but it's just the cacao. It's not any other additive. So when you buy this, just make sure it's just the cacao powder. You can buy this in a bar, like a kind of a chocolate bar. That's typically used for baking. I would say I've maybe built up my tolerance for eating something it's pretty bitter, but I don't mind eating that 100% cacao. Typically though, I would do it powder form and just add it to a shake. So what I want to do is kind of recap these and talk about how do you fit this into your life and how should you, so that you can get the great benefits. So what I would do, most of these you can just have as a shake. I would definitely recommend doing the chlorella as a daily dose, just doing the 3 grams, because the benefits are amazing as far as what it's going to do for your gut health. It's increasing your healing rates, the detoxification. So it's kind of a way to help mitigate some of the things that you might be taking in that are creating damage in your body. So the way I would do that, if you're doing the pill form, when you get up in the morning, I would just take the serving size with a glass of water. Same thing with the spirulina. You may be taking that as a pill form or a powder. If it's a powder and you mix it in, it's going to make your whatever super green. So if you don't care what your stuff looks like, some people are sensitive to that. I really don't care. I could care less what it tastes like, because when you know all the benefits, like I said, I could care less about the taste. But if you care about what the color looks like and you don't want to have this super dark green drink for whatever reason, that's what it's going to look like if you use the spirulina. If you take it as a tablet, same thing. I would just take it with a chlorella, have them together. I like to mix the maca, the cacao, the goji berry all together. You could do the honey as well and add that in, but that's easy. Like those mix really well in a shake. Depending on how you want to take in the coconut, like I said, sometimes I'll just do a spoonful. So if I was trying to do all of this stuff in the morning, I would just take the chlorella, spirulina together, drink some water, and then I would make a shake with the maca, cacao, goji berry. You could do a little bit of honey, and just put all of them together. The bee pollen, you could sprinkle some in as well. The coconut, if you're doing the brain octane oil, you're just going to pour that in. If not, I would do it as long as I had a blender, but I'm not putting that in a shaker. I literally just use a shaker cup and I'll put everything minus the honey. That one I don't always do daily. You can, but I'll just shake that up. If you have a really good blender, you definitely can throw all that stuff in there together. So just to recap kind of the ones that we went through, your goji berry, that's going to increase your HGH. So it's the only food that's going to increase how much HGH you produce. Maca is, the highest grown crop, and that is going to be more for like energy, stamina. Cacao is the most antioxidants, so that's great as far as the antioxidants, but also the magnesium, because that's the highest source. And like I said, that's what we're most efficient in. So that's the easiest way to replace that one. With the honey and the bee pollen together, you're getting a lot of the strength benefits are crazy from that study. As far as the that Olympic team, the strength they got from the bee pollen was pretty amazing. For the actual honey itself, topically, you can use that on wounds. It's great for GI issues. Like I said, it never expires. That's crazy. But as far as its antioxidant properties, probiotic, and then it has a lot of minerals and enzymes as well. And for most people, they're using that if they have any type of allergy, which that can be really beneficial. Chlorella was the detoxifying, as well as the ability to remove heavy metals and then increase the gut flora. Spirulina was mostly protein, so it's a really protein dense, and it also has that GLA, which supports your nervous system. The coconut, to me, is still one of the biggest ones. Increase in thyroid function. So many people suffer with thyroid issues, and the fact that you can do something as easy as coconut, it's like such a, to me, what seems like a common food, to get these incredible benefits. Well, that's all I have for you guys tonight. So I hope that you enjoyed this and you learned a lot. I would ask, if you did learn something today that you know you're going to implement into your life, to share this with someone close to you or anyone that you know that needs to know this. Thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you have a great night.